Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dead BBQ, and the holidays are right around the corner, so what better time to do my top 10 gifts of 2023. One of the advantages of a YouTube channel is I get to try all sorts of stuff, including things that I would never buy on my own. And there are some winners and there's some losers. And so with all that in mind, I put together my top 10 gift ideas for 2023. At the risk of shameless self-promotion, item number one and the least expensive item on my list is my own ebook, coming in at $12. Now, I've logged thousands of cooks using temperature probes on my Big Joe Series 1 to 3 to Classic to large green eggs to my Kamado Joe Jr. and compiled all this data into a vent settings guide. So everything from the Kamado Joe Jr., Series 1, Series 2, Series 3 Classic, Series 1, Series 2, Series 3 Big Joe, to put together my ultimate temperature guide to answer the questions that I get asked most frequently. So I've included visuals of your bottom damper as well as your top vent, including a visual diagram that you can print off a one-pager and keep handy as a quick reference guide. Also helpful tips in terms of how to set up and build your fires to get the best results, as well as addressing the most frequently asked questions in terms of, I've tried some of these settings and I'm getting slightly different results. What could be causing these issues? So I've compiled all of that into my very first ebook. It's available on the smokingdadbbq.com website for $12. It makes a great resource for you, or potentially if you've got someone in your family who's new to fire management on their Kamado Joe, this is a great stocking stuffer. Let's move into item number two. So gift idea number two, I think I use perhaps more than any other tool in my grilling arsenal, which is a pair of high heat gloves. So I've got a couple choices. It really comes down to color and what you like. They both work equally well. So for years, I've been rocking these JH Safety on Amazon high heat gloves. They're $35. Or Meter now also has a pair of high heat gloves that I've been testing and not getting burnt either, that are $35. And I think my save 10% code works on those. It's a matter of which color you like as well as what's in stock. I do notice I get lots of comments saying these are out of stock on Amazon. So hopefully that's figured out just in time for the holidays that you have your choice. But this comes in so handy for placing logs in your offset, to grabbing a hot deflector stone or a pizza stone outside of your Kamado Joe. Makes a great gift idea. And if your family sadly doesn't love you that much, it's definitely one that you're going to want to pick up and get after the holiday rush is done. So you save your hands from getting burnt touching any hot grilling gear. On to number three. Another great item coming in under $35 is something like a smokeware drip pan. And I just got an email saying that there's now a new size, a low profile 14-inch. This is the 10-inch size, something that I would use in my Joe Jr. And this is going to solve a couple of problems, namely trying to fit a water pan underneath the slow roller. The larger pans with a thicker profile don't fit under the slow roller, even in something like my Big Joe Series 1 and or 3. And so a lower profile pan is going to allow us to fit a little bit more water and hide that in under either our deflector stones or a slow roller. If you're only trying to stop drippings, like when I did my dojo and I put some tinfoil underneath that, tinfoil is a great solution. And even if you have something like this and you want to keep it new, just like this one does, wrapping in foil is a great way to clean it up really quickly. How I like to use these most, where you actually want a defined shape, is for adding water. And if you say, James, you don't need water in a Kamado, that's something that I used to say for 15 years until I tested it side by side, and turns out there's actually not a lot of truth in this common held belief. I know, I've tested them side by side and I was blown away by the results. And so if you want to add something like water into your Kamado, a structured pan like the ones from SmokeWare give a variety of options, whether they're sitting in the X accessory ring or being tucked in under the slow roller. They can be had for starting under $35. On to number four. Well, no, we haven't jumped from $35 up to a Kamado Joe Jr. as an acceptable gift. And if that is an acceptable gift and budget in your family, I'm available to be adopted. But we'll save that for later. Reach out in the comments. What I'm actually on about is inside my Kamado Joe Jr., which is the can from Kick Ash Basket. So you haven't seen this product before. This is a quick and easy way to scoop out ash, and it works in partnership with something like the Kick Ash Basket, another accessory from Kick Ash Basket and team. And I've shared that many times before. This is one of the best ways if you plan to take your Kamado Joe Jr. or any small Kamado on the road and you want to put it in your vehicle without having it still be nuclear temperatures. Removing the source of heat is the best way to cool down hot ceramics. So something like that charcoal basket in partnership with our previous gift, those high heat gloves, you can remove that, your ceramic will cool down much quicker. But the Joe Jr. here is unique in the Kamado lineup, is it doesn't get some of the same innovations that Kamado Joe brought to their Classic and Big Joe series line versus what I was used to using 15 years ago on a Big Green Egg. If I compare Big Green Egg ash removal versus Kamado Joe, there's a big difference. On a Big Green Egg, you're using the ash tool and you're scooping things out underneath a cast iron grate. That's before at least everybody started going to charcoal baskets. And Kamado Joe's solution here on the Classic and the Big Joe was, in that time frame, really innovative because there was deflector wings which funneled that ash into a removable ash drawer, and it made cleanup really simple. Flash forward though to all new grills have a charcoal basket series 3 at least included right from the factory, and the deletion of that original charcoal fire grate. And so now if we want to remove our charcoal basket and all charcoal, it's super easy to clean out the ash removal. And this is 100% personal preference. One of the things that I disliked most about owning a pellet grill is needing to get the shop vac out and remove any ash buildup to prevent grease fires. And this is what many people are comfortable doing with the stock Kamado Joe system, as after about 6 months of use, you can see ash built up. And I forgot to mention earlier, I actually tested this earlier this year. I put the stock system back in my Kamado Joe Series 1, let it go for 6 months of normal use to see how much ash builds up underneath these stock wings. So this is by no means a mission critical 911 problem to solve. It's just a matter of workflow. And for me, I don't like getting electronics out and blowing dust everywhere, which is why I opt to do it for free with my hand. And earlier this year, I started testing the can from Kick-Ash Basket, and that makes that simple process that much simpler. So for that reason alone, I give it a thumbs up, particularly on something like the Joe Jr., which doesn't even have the option of a factory option where it's a choice in terms of workflow, as all of our ash is just collecting in the bottom. So the can, particularly in the Junior, makes even more sense. On to number 5. So at just under $100, my next idea either makes a ton of sense or no sense whatsoever. And that really depends on your use case. So that for me is something like an IR temperature gun. So the one that I'm using can go all the way up to nearly 1100 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is letting me know the temperature on the cooking surface, whatever I'm using, whether that's something like the carbon steel griddle from Kamado Joe to a soapstone. So for example, if I'm searing a steak, I don't want to put my steaks on and have the surface temperature too low. For example, if it was 400, 500 degrees, that's not going to give me the Maillard reaction that I'm after. And I'm going to go from that crust to a big brown band to eventually medium well and then medium. I don't like that. I want to get a blast sear and get a perfect crust. So I'm looking for a surface temperature of 650 degrees Fahrenheit plus on my soapstone, and or at lower temperatures if I'm cooking bacon on the soapstone or smash burgers or anything like that where maybe I want 300, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Information like this comes in incredibly handy. Is it absolutely necessary? No. But after maybe getting a couple steak crusts that you're not happy with, giving yourself information can help protect the investment you've made on your steaks or your smash burgers or anything in between, and make sure you can turn out a more consistent result every single time. On to number 6. So number 6 is the meter plus 2. I'm not going to repeat my entire first impressions video, but the too long didn't read version is I'm a big fan, save for 2 main things. First, there's not yet a multiple probe solution like the meter block. I love my meter block for being able to track multiple cooks. But the real reason is this is the only option for meter with built-in Wi-Fi right out of the box. I learned the hard way early on years ago when I bought my first meter, then a plus, and then ultimately the block, is that what I was really after was that true Wi-Fi experience without needing any other device. If I want true Wi-Fi on something like a meter or a meter plus or the meter plus 2, I need to do that in partnership with a spare device. Maybe I have a tablet or a spare smartphone that's connected to the internet that stays close to the Bluetooth repeater, that connects to the cloud, and you're off to the races. But if that use case doesn't apply to you and you're happy to use Bluetooth and be near your cook, the Meter 2 is an amazing probe. It's 30% thinner, it can withstand much higher temperatures, it charges faster, it's dishwasher safe, and the list goes on and on. If you want to know more, check out my detailed first looks and impressions of the Meter 2, but at $119, this is absolutely worth a look if your holiday budget can stretch up to about $119 US. On to number 7. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know I'm a big fan of something like a digital meat thermometer. This gives us critical information few other tools can convey. A, the information like the actual temperature of our food down to a very precise measurement, but more importantly, the probe feel. But there's a new sheriff in town, and I haven't had the full 6 months, but the early signs are all pointing to yes here, which is the Fireboard Spark. I've been blown away at the incremental benefits above and beyond what my ThermoWorks probes are able to do. Not only is the fit and finish of this amazing, this is fully Wi-Fi capable. So you can plug in a meat probe and track your cook anywhere in the world using Wi-Fi. This has Wi-Fi built in. It's got a nice, easy to read display. And if you happen to have something like the Fireboard Drive, which just recently won my smart controller battle, this can serve as your display. If you don't have your phone or a smartwatch or anything like that, you can place this anywhere around your house or connect it to Wi-Fi and get access to what's going on inside of your cook. So the utility in this, above and beyond any other handheld smart probe, plus it's deadly accurate, make it a surefire winner. And I can't wait to test this over the weeks and months to come. But given the holidays right around the corner, this is one you definitely want to read up on, because I've been blown away with how well it works. On to number 8. So number 8 is knives. Now, I've already done a complete video on why I'm Team Dow Strong, so I'm not going to repeat that. I'll put a link down below if you want to check that out. But the most common question I get is, what knife should I buy? So the best knife you ever buy is the one that you use all the time. The worst knife that you ever buy is the one that you buy and don't use often enough to get the utility. So I'm going to put my top 3 knife categories and some advantages or options for each one, so you can find the perfect knife that you'll use the most. That will ultimately be the best gift. So starting with the slicing and carving category, you've got 3 options. You've got something like the traditional brisket slicer. If you cook briskets all the time, getting a proper slicer is one of the best things that you can add to your quiver of knives, as this will just make it that much easier not to get sort of that sawing motion or tearing your brisket. Depending on how much you're carving, something like an offset style knife, so this is the Dow Strong Shogun series offset slicer. The offset slicer just means that my knuckles are protected, so if I'm slicing along a cutting board, I'm not going to hit my knuckles. So this is more of an ergonomic advantage versus anything being different about the knife. But if you're one of those people that I cook a brisket maybe once a year, May 24 is when I go and cook a brisket or something like that, there's maybe another option, which is actually to get something like a bread knife. Now it's 1.5 inches or so shorter, so this is only 10.25 inches, and it's serrated. But lots of top barbecue restaurants use a serrated knife, and if you're only cooking a brisket once or twice a year, this style of knife will not only be useful for bread and baguettes and croissants and everything else that you're carving up, it'll do an admirable job of that brisket that you cook once a year. So you'll be using this far more frequently than a bespoke slicing and carving knife that you'll only get to use once a year, and it can save you a little bit money. I think it's about $20 less expensive than either the offset slicer or the regular slicer. Next up in the most used category for me would be a chef knife. So this is a 10.25 inch knife, which is another option. If you want to skip slicing altogether, you can get something like a longer chef knife. So the advantage of this is you maybe can save on getting a slicer knife. The disadvantage to something like this is a big knife to wield around if you're doing something like spatchcock chicken. If you want to get into that detailed work of pulling out the breastbone, the cartilage, the rib cage, and things like that, where an 8-inch industry standard knife is much easier to navigate around something like a chicken. So I would go with an 8-inch knife if you can have more than one, but if you can only have one knife out of everything that I'm showing you here today, going for a larger 10-inch knife will help serve many of those jobs that you come across in the backyard or in the kitchen. And last but not least in this list, and starting at the least expensive, so I think $89, is something like a fillet or boning knife. So this knife here is a boning knife. So the difference between the two, you can use either one of these for trimming a brisket, but you're gonna get some flexibility in a boning knife that's gonna allow us to work really nice and close around silver skin and things like that. But after I did a brisket video comparing trim brisket versus no trim brisket, there was practically no difference. If anything, I liked the untrimmed brisket better. So a knife that's a little bit easier to use and the edge stays sharper longer is this 6.5 inch fillet slash boning knife from Dow Strong. So if I could only have one, you can get a little bit more utility and it's less money for something like a combo fillet slash boning knife. On to number 9. Nothing says holidays like burning down the Christmas tree. And so this is getting on the higher end of the pricing scale. So we're working our way up to about $179. But the Grill Blazer grill gun, if you start a lot of fires, will more than pay for itself over time. I use this in my offset to get fires going, my solo stove, or even my Kamados regularly. You see that how I like to start fires. And I can go from 0 to cooking in about 15 to 16 minutes. This is by far the fastest way to get your fire going. When I first started in a Kamado style grill, Big Green Egg at the time, one of the holdbacks of a Kamado style grill was the time it takes to get up to temperature. And so we kept a propane grill just for the utility. What about burgers, hot dogs? But I can go from 0 to 400 degrees in about 15 minutes using a minute of fire from my Grill Blazer grill gun. That just makes this a grill that you can use a weekday, get up to temperatures no problem. And if you've got a larger propane tank and a driveway like mine where the weeds like to grow up in between, you can use it for unconventional things like incinerating those pesky weeds that grow between your cracks. If that's a little bit too much power, there's also a smaller and nearly as powerful sous vide gun, which is actually what I take with us in our RV when we go camping, namely because it takes up way less space. And this is still ample power for starting something like our solo stove, the Acorn, which we took with us this year, or Kamado Joe Jr. in previous years. And it also has a baffle on the end of the nozzle. So if you want to do something like finer touches around searing a creme brulee or searing your steak, that might be the better option, in addition to being slightly less money. So those are the two great gift ideas at the higher end of the budget scale from Grill Blazer Grill Gun. Let's move on to number 10. So my 10th and final item is not only the most expensive, it's also perhaps the most controversial. And so depending on how you use this, this is either going to be one of the best things that you've ever bought, or you're going to be sending a comment down below like, James, how on earth did that make your top 10 list? There are so many ways you can get similar results for way less money. And so this really depends on how you use it. And I'm talking, of course, about the pepper cannon. I, for one, love making my own rubs. This is a rub recipe. I posted it on my website, smokingdadbarbecue.com, which is a combination of our family's favorite things from the Franklin rub, the Goldie's rub, and the Black's rub. And so by dialing in our own spices, getting the pepper to the right consistency, I can go anywhere from 8 to 60 mesh, or other ingredients like coffee beans and things like that. Making your own rubs, the pepper cannon is a no-brainer. Of course, you can use your stock pepper mill, or you can put a power tool or something like that and chop up your peppercorns at home for a fraction of the money. But if you happen to go down a dark rabbit hole like I've done with coffee, there's a big difference in flavor between chopping your beans versus a quality burn mill that squeezes out those oils and aromas and unlocks more flavor. And that is what makes the pepper cannon so special. Not only is this a really high quality burn mill that you can adjust from anywhere from 80 to 60 mesh, you can do a bunch of other things like allspice, coffee, and of course many different flavors of peppers. Like I use a 5 peppercorn melody in many of my rubs. And so if you happen to be on a journey of making your own rubs, this will be a no-brainer list. If you put pepper on your steak once a month, well, then by all means, there was 9 other ideas in today's video that will make lots of sense for you. This wouldn't be a gift guide if I wasn't maybe giving a gift to you. And so to help out, I have a brand new meter block that I'm going to be giving away. And the only way that you can be entered is to go to my website, smokingdadbarbecue.com, and sign up for the newsletter. I'm going to cap it at 1,000. So the first 1,000 people from today's video that go and sign up for the newsletter are going to be entered in a draw. If you've already signed up before, I will include you. So it's going to be 1,000 plus whoever signed up earlier this week when the site went live. But you have a 1 in approximately 1,000 chance to win a brand new meter block. And if you don't win, my gift to you is still going to be that free ebook, which is a meat temperature guide. Thanks so much for following along. Wish you a safe and happy holidays. That's it for today, though. I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, signing off. Remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.